Gentlemen, let me ask you something personal. Are you starting your mornings feeling like you never quite fully arrived? Like the engine is running but never really firing? Maybe your energy plateaus before the day even gets going. Maybe the strength you bring to your workouts, your work, your relationships feels like it has a ceiling on it that wasn't there 5 years ago. Maybe you've tried the morning routines, the cold showers, the black coffee, the early alarms, and something is still missing. If that sounds familiar, I want you to stay with me, because there is a very specific reason that most men over 50 feel this way, and it has nothing to do with effort or discipline. It has to do with a single mineral that over 60% of men over 50 are deficient in without knowing it, and that your morning water may be the simplest possible delivery system for. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, a board-certified urologist with over 12 years of experience helping men over 50 rebuild the physiological foundation that daily performance, hormonal health, and vitality depend on. I want to challenge something you may have been told, that the fatigue, the reduced strength, the blunted drive you feel after 50 is simply the inevitable arithmetic of aging. In my clinical experience and in the research I follow closely, that belief is far more negotiable than most men realize. A significant portion of what gets labeled as aging in men over 50 is measurable deficiency. And deficiency, by definition, is correctable. Today, I'm going to walk you through the science of the single mineral I recommend most consistently to men in this demographic, why your morning water is the optimal delivery vehicle, and exactly how to use it for results that are genuine and evidence-backed. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that like button and drop a comment below telling me whether you currently take any minerals or supplements in the morning. I read every single one, and that information helps me understand exactly where the men watching this channel are starting from. Here is what most men over 50 are never told clearly enough, and why this particular deficiency is so consistently overlooked even by physicians who are otherwise thorough. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. That number is not rhetorical. It is a literal count of the biochemical processes that cannot proceed correctly without adequate magnesium present. Testosterone synthesis, nitric oxide production, cellular energy generation through ATP, deep sleep architecture, insulin sensitivity, muscle contraction and recovery, cortisol regulation, vascular tone. Every single one of these processes, every one of them, directly relevant to what men over 50 experience as daily performance, requires magnesium as a cofactor. And here is where the clinical picture becomes particularly important. Standard blood tests measure serum magnesium, the magnesium floating freely in your bloodstream, but only about 1% of the body's total magnesium exists in the blood. The remaining 99% is stored inside cells and in bone. A man can have a normal serum magnesium reading and still be profoundly deficient at the cellular level where the deficiency actually matters. This is why so many men are told their magnesium is fine when their symptoms tell a completely different story. The research is clear on prevalence. A study published in Nutrients found that up to 68% of American adults do not meet the recommended daily intake for magnesium, with older men being among the most consistently deficient groups. The reasons are compounding. Magnesium content in food has declined significantly over the past 50 years due to soil depletion. Absorption efficiency decreases with age. Alcohol, caffeine, and certain medications, including commonly prescribed blood pressure medications and proton pump inhibitors, all accelerate magnesium excretion. The result is a population of men over 50 who are operating with a chronically depleted physiological resource, attributing the consequences to age, and being confirmed in that attribution by tests that are not sensitive enough to reveal the actual problem. Let's go through what magnesium specifically does for men over 50, and why the morning water protocol is the delivery method I recommend. The first area of impact is testosterone production. Biologically, magnesium plays a direct and well-documented role in testosterone synthesis at multiple levels. It acts as a cofactor for the enzymatic reactions that convert cholesterol into testosterone in the Leydig cells of the testes. It also reduces the binding activity of sex hormone binding globulin, SHBG, the protein that attaches to testosterone in the bloodstream and renders it biologically inactive. Free testosterone, the fraction that actually enters cells and drives the effects men associate with hormonal health, is meaningfully higher in men with adequate magnesium compared to men who are deficient. A study published in the journal Biological Trace Element Research followed men over 1 year and found that magnesium supplementation produced significant increases in both total and free testosterone, with the effect being most pronounced in men who were also physically active. Think of magnesium in this context as the key that keeps testosterone biologically available rather than locked away. You may be producing adequate testosterone and still experiencing deficiency symptoms simply because SHBG is sequestering it at a rate that magnesium adequacy would reduce. Emotionally, the men who restore their magnesium levels after prolonged deficiency often describe the shift in terms that go beyond physical energy. A return of forward momentum, a restoration of the quiet confidence that had been fading so gradually they hadn't noticed it leaving, a renewed interest in physical and intimate connection that they had begun to accept as simply gone. These are not small changes. They are the changes that matter most to the men I work with. Practically, the target intake for men over 50 is 400 to 420 milligrams of elemental magnesium per day. The form matters enormously. Magnesium glycinate is my first recommendation for most men because it has superior absorption, is gentle on the digestive system, and has the added benefit of supporting sleep quality through its effect on the central nervous system. Magnesium malate is an excellent alternative, particularly for men whose primary complaint is fatigue and muscle soreness, as malate plays a direct role in the citric acid cycle that generates cellular energy. Avoid magnesium oxide. It has the poorest absorption of any common form, somewhere between 4 and 20%, and is the form most commonly found in cheap supplement blends. The second area of impact is sleep architecture and overnight recovery. This is the mechanism I consider most upstream of everything else, because everything a man over 50 cares about in terms of daily performance is downstream of what happens during sleep. Biologically, magnesium regulates the activity of GABA receptors in the brain, GABA being the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter that allows the nervous system to downshift from alert wakefulness into the deep, slow-wave sleep where testosterone is predominantly synthesized, cellular repair occurs, and cortisol is cleared. Without adequate magnesium, GABA receptor activity is impaired. The nervous system cannot fully deactivate, and the man lies in bed in a state that feels like rest, but produces almost none of the biological benefits of genuine deep sleep. This is the physiological explanation behind one of the most common complaints I hear from men over 50. Waking up after 7 or 8 hours feeling like they barely slept. That experience is not imagined. It reflects a real deficit in sleep stage quality, and magnesium deficiency is one of the most consistent and correctable contributors to it. A study published in the Journal of Research in Medical Sciences found that magnesium supplementation in older adults significantly improved sleep efficiency, sleep time, early morning awakening, and serum cortisol levels, with results appearing within 8 weeks of consistent supplementation. Think of adequate magnesium as the biological permission slip for your nervous system to actually rest. Without it, the system stays partly switched on all night, burning resources it should be restoring. Emotionally, the men who restore deep sleep through magnesium adequacy describe the experience in terms that are almost uniform in their consistency. A heaviness that lifts, a morning alertness that feels qualitatively different from anything they've experienced in years, a patience and emotional steadiness during the day that they had attributed to personality change, and is actually, in significant part, the product of a nervous system that is finally recovering overnight the way it was designed to. Practically, for sleep optimization specifically, take your magnesium glycinate in the evening rather than the morning. 200 to 400 milligrams in warm water, 30 to 60 minutes before bed. This timing aligns the peak of magnesium's effect on GABA receptor activity with the window when you need it most. I remember a patient named Victor, 63, a logistics manager who described his sleep situation with the resigned precision of a man who had accepted something painful as permanent. He was waking at 2 or 3 in the morning, could not return to sleep, and was running his workdays on 5 hours of fragmented rest. His serum magnesium was normal. His physician had told him there was nothing to address. Victor came to me as a second opinion, and I walked him through exactly what I've just explained, that serum levels don't reflect cellular status, and that his symptom profile was a textbook picture of magnesium insufficiency. He started magnesium glycinate at 200 milligrams in the evening, increased to 400 milligrams after 2 weeks. At his 6-week follow-up, he told me he was sleeping through until 5 or 6 in the morning consistently. He said, "I forgot what it felt like to wake up and actually feel ready." That restoration, which cost him almost nothing and required no prescription, had been available to him for years. He simply hadn't been given the right information. The third area of impact is nitric oxide production and vascular performance. Biologically, magnesium is a required cofactor for endothelial nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme in your blood vessel walls that produces nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for vascular dilation and healthy blood flow. When magnesium is deficient, this enzyme underperforms. Nitric oxide production drops, and blood vessels remain in a state of increased tone and reduced responsiveness. The clinical consequences for men over 50 are significant and direct. Reduced exercise capacity, slower muscle recovery, elevated resting blood pressure, and diminished erectile function. All of these share a common upstream cause in compromised nitric oxide availability, and all of them have a meaningful magnesium component. Research published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed that magnesium supplementation produced significant reductions in resting blood pressure in hypertensive individuals, with effects comparable in magnitude to low-dose antihypertensive medication in some subgroups. Think of magnesium in this context as the maintenance worker for your vascular system, the compound that keeps the machinery producing what your blood vessels need to stay open, flexible, and responsive. Emotionally, the vascular improvements that follow magnesium restoration show up experientially as a warmth and ease in the body, a reduction in that heavy, congested physical feeling that many men over 50 carry without recognizing it as a circulation issue. The men who notice their erectile function improving in the weeks after restoring magnesium adequacy are not experiencing a placebo effect. They are experiencing the restoration of a physiological input that was previously insufficient. Practically, for maximum vascular benefit, combine your morning magnesium with a source of dietary nitrates. Beetroot powder is the most effective and accessible option. 1 teaspoon of beetroot powder alongside your magnesium in morning water activates both the enzymatic and non-enzymatic nitric oxide pathways simultaneously, producing a vascular environment that neither compound creates independently. This is the combination I recommend most consistently to men over 50, whose primary complaints involve energy, circulation, and sexual performance. The fourth area of impact is cortisol regulation and stress resilience. Biologically, magnesium and cortisol exist in a direct inverse relationship. When cortisol rises, magnesium is excreted more rapidly by the kidneys. And when magnesium levels fall, the HPA axis, the hormonal stress response system, becomes hyperreactive, producing cortisol more readily in response to lower-level stressors. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle that is particularly devastating for men over 50, whose cortisol regulation is already less efficient than it was at younger ages. Chronically elevated cortisol directly suppresses testosterone production, impairs sleep quality, drives visceral fat accumulation, and promotes systemic inflammation, every one of which compounds the hormonal and physical decline men over 50 attribute to aging alone. Magnesium adequacy interrupts this cycle at the source by reducing the HPA axis reactivity that keeps cortisol elevated. A study in the journal Magnesium Research found that magnesium supplementation significantly attenuated cortisol response to physical and psychological stressors in human subjects. Think of it as lowering the gain on your body's alarm system, not eliminating the response when it's genuinely needed, but preventing the chronic, low-level overactivation that exhausts the system over time. Emotionally, men who restore magnesium and experience normalized cortisol regulation describe a quality of calm that feels unfamiliar at first, a steadiness, an ability to absorb difficulty without the internal escalation they had come to expect. They describe feeling less reactive, more centered, more able to be present in their relationships and their days. These are not soft outcomes. They are the direct experiological signature of a stress response system that is finally operating within its designed parameters. Practically, the morning water protocol addresses cortisol regulation most effectively when it is paired with a consistent routine. The same time each morning, the same preparation. Consistency itself signals safety to the nervous system and compounds the cortisol-regulating effect of the magnesium over time. So here is your complete morning water protocol. Each morning, on an empty stomach or alongside a light breakfast, mix into a large glass of water, ideally at room temperature or slightly warm, 200 milligrams of magnesium glycinate or magnesium malate powder, 1 teaspoon of beetroot powder for vascular support, and a small squeeze of lemon juice to improve absorption and palatability. Drink this slowly over 5 to 10 minutes rather than in a single swallow. In the evening, take an additional 200 milligrams of magnesium glycinate in warm water 30 to 60 minutes before bed. The combined daily dose of 400 milligrams sits precisely within the research-supported range for men over 50. Follow this protocol for a minimum of 3 weeks before evaluating results. Most men notice improved sleep quality within the first 7 to 10 days. The hormonal, vascular, and cortisol-regulating benefits build over 4 to 8 weeks of consistent use. One important note: if you are currently taking any medications, particularly antibiotics, diuretics, or medications for diabetes or heart conditions, please consult your physician before beginning magnesium supplementation, as magnesium can interact with the absorption and efficacy of several common drug classes. This is not a reason to avoid it. It is a reason to be informed. I want to say something to you directly before we close. If you have been running at less than your capacity for long enough that it has started to feel like your capacity, if the fatigue, the disrupted sleep, the blunted drive have become so familiar that you've stopped questioning them, I want you to hear this clearly. That familiarity is not the same as inevitability. The research is unambiguous that magnesium deficiency is widespread, measurable in its consequences, and correctable with consistent and informed supplementation. Your body has more capacity than you have been told. The men who reclaim their energy, their sleep, their hormonal vitality after 50 are not the exception. They are simply the men who were given accurate information and chose to act on it. That information is now yours. If this video gave you something concrete, give it a like so other men can find it. Leave a comment telling me which of these 4 benefits, testosterone, sleep, circulation, or stress resilience, is the one you need most right now. Share this with a man in your life who has been running on empty and accepted that as his normal, because the evidence says it doesn't have to be. And subscribe for more clinically grounded, evidence-backed guidance made specifically for men over 50. I'm Dr. Emily Carter. Your body's capacity for restoration after 50 is greater than most men have ever been told. And today, you have the science to begin acting on that. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.